The night the Alpha King chose his Luna was supposed to be unforgettable, and it was, just not for the reasons anyone expected. Silver torches burned along the towering stone walls of the Moonfall Palace, their flames dancing like restless spirits beneath the full moon. Velvet banners bearing the royal wolf crest swayed gently in the cold wind. Hundreds of wolves from allied packs filled the grand courtyard, their voices blending into a low hum of anticipation. Tonight, Alpha King Kale Draven would finally announce his mate. For months, the entire werewolf realm had whispered about it. And almost everyone believed the same thing. It would be her. Ariana Vale stood near the marble balcony, fingers lightly gripping the railing. The moonlight brushed across her soft features, turning her silver, blue eyes almost luminous. Her long dark hair flowed down her back like ink spilling into night. She wasn't dressed like the others. No glittering crown, no heavy jewels, no dramatic gown, meant to impress, just a simple midnight blue dress that moved with the wind. Because Ariana had never needed attention, she had earned respect instead. The daughter of a fallen beta, a strategist, a warrior, the woman who had helped Alpha King Kale win the Northern Territory War 3 years ago, and the woman everyone believed he loved. A faint warmth lingered in her chest as she looked toward the palace gates. He would arrive any moment. Memories flickered through her mind like fragments of a dream. The night Kale first trusted her with battle command, the moment he saved her during the Bloodfang ambush, the quiet conversations beneath moonlit skies where his voice softened only for her. He had never said the words, but he didn't need to. Or so she thought. A sudden silence spread across the courtyard, then the massive iron gates opened. A deep horn echoed through the mountains, and he appeared. Alpha King Kale Draven stepped forward like a storm given human form. Tall, commanding, unshakable black ceremonial armor traced with silver runes reflected the torchlight. His dark hair fell slightly over his sharp eyes, glowing faintly amber under the moon. Every step carried authority that made even seasoned alphas instinctively lower their heads. Power rolled off him like heat, but tonight something was different. He wasn't alone. Ariana's breath froze. Walking beside him was Lady Selene Ardent, the daughter of the richest allied pack in the realm. Her golden gown shimmered like liquid sunlight. Jewels sparkled across her shoulders. Her smile was flawless, and her hand rested lightly on Kale's arm. The courtyard erupted into murmurs. Ariana didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe, no. Her mind rejected what her eyes were seeing. Kale stopped at the center platform. His gaze swept across the crowd, steady, unreadable. Then, for a brief moment, his eyes met Ariana's. Something flickered there, conflict, regret, hesitation, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. His expression hardened into the mask of a king. A new era begins tonight. Kale's voice echoed across the courtyard, deep and commanding. For the strength of the realm, for unity, and for the future of our bloodlines. Ariana's heart began to pound. Not from hope, from dread. Selene stepped forward gracefully. Kale continued. I have chosen the woman who will stand beside me as Luna of the royal pack. The world slowed. Every sound faded, every torch blurred. Ariana felt the air leave her lungs, and then Kale reached for Selene's hand. I choose Lady Selene Ardent. The courtyard exploded with applause. Cheers echoed across the mountains. Some wolves looked shocked. Others relieved, many confused, but Ariana heard none of it. Because in that single moment, everything inside her went silent. Not shattered, not broken, just empty. Selene smiled brightly as Kale lifted her hand. The ceremonial silver bracelet of the royal Luna was brought forward by the High Elder. Ariana watched as Kale took it, watched as he gently placed it around Selene's wrist, watched as the bracelet glowed faintly, acknowledging the royal bond. Not a true mate bond, but a chosen one, a political one, a calculated one. The realization settled like ice in Ariana's veins. This wasn't about love. This was strategy, alliance, power. And suddenly everything made sense. The recent political meetings, the distant way Kale had acted these past weeks, the conversations he had postponed, the emotions he had never clarified. Ariana felt something rise inside her chest. Not heartbreak, something colder, stronger, dignity. Around her, whispers began. Wasn't Ariana supposed to be? I thought the Alpha King. She helped him win the war. Ariana straightened. Slowly, gracefully, without a single tear, because she would not cry here, not in front of the entire realm. Not for a man who had chosen pride over truth. On the platform, Selene leaned closer to Cale, speaking softly to him. The gesture was intimate, intentional, territorial. Ariana noticed, and something inside her clicked. Ah, so that's how it is. Her fingers loosened from the railing. The wind lifted her hair gently as she turned away from the ceremony. No dramatic reaction, no confrontation, no tears. She simply walked, step by step, through the crowd. Past the whispering nobles, past the shocked warriors, past the future Luna, and past the Alpha King. But just as she reached the edge of the courtyard and Cale spoke again, Ariana, the single word carried authority. Command, expectation. The entire courtyard fell silent once more. Ariana stopped, slowly turned. Their eyes met across the distance. And for the first time, the Alpha King looked uncertain. Not powerful, not untouchable, uncertain. Stay, Cale said, his voice quieter now, but still firm. It wasn't a request, it was an order. The old Ariana might have obeyed. The loyal strategist, the trusted warrior, the woman who believed in him, but that Ariana no longer existed. Something new stood in her place. Ariana smiled, softly, calmly, and then she bowed, not as a lover. Not as a future Luna, but as a subject. As you wish, your majesty. The title hit harder than any insult. A flicker of shock crossed Cale's face. Then Ariana straightened, turned, and walked away. The gates of Moonfall Palace opened. The cold night air wrapped around her like freedom. Behind her, the celebration resumed, but it sounded distant now. Muted, irrelevant, because in that single walk, Ariana Vale had done something no one had ever dared. She walked away from the Alpha King, and though no one realized it yet, that one bold move had already begun to destroy his pride. Far above the mountains, the full moon burned brighter, and somewhere deep within Ariana's soul, a strange warmth stirred. Faint, mysterious awakening, as if the real story had only just begun. Part 2. The night she chose herself. The palace gates closed behind Ariana with a heavy echo. It sounded final, like the end of a chapter she had spent years writing with her loyalty, her strength, and her silent love. Cold wind swept across the mountain road, leading away from Moonfall Palace. The celebration lights faded behind her, replaced by shadows stretching across the forest path. Ariana didn't stop walking. Not when the distant music rose, not when laughter carried through the night, not even when her chest tightened with emotions she refused to name. She kept moving. Because if she stopped, she might break. The moon hung high above the forest, bright and watchful. Silver light filtered through the tall pine trees, painting the ground in soft glowing patterns. This road led to the warrior barracks, to the place she had lived since her father died, to the place that had once felt like home. But tonight even that felt unfamiliar. After several minutes, Ariana finally slowed. Her steps grew quieter, her breathing steadier, and then she stopped completely. The silence of the forest wrapped around her. For the first time since the ceremony, she allowed herself to feel. The memories came quickly, too quickly. Cale standing beside her on the battlefield, Cale placing his cloak around her shoulders during a winter patrol, Cale telling her, "You're the only one I trust with this, trust." Not love, never love. A small, bitter smile touched her lips, so that was the mistake. She whispered softly. She had mistaken closeness for connection, respect for affection, and silence for promise. The wind shifted suddenly. Ariana's senses sharpened. Instinct, warrior instinct, someone was nearby. Her hand moved toward the dagger hidden beneath her dress, not out of fear, but out of habit. Leaves rustled, a branch snapped, then, relax. The voice came from the shadows ahead, familiar, warm. Calm, a tall figure stepped into the moonlight, Rowan Ashford, second, in command of the royal warriors. And one of the few people who had ever treated Ariana as an equal instead of a subordinate. His gray eyes studied her carefully. Not with curiosity, with concern. "You left early," Rowan said quietly. Ariana gave a light shrug. "I stayed long enough." Rowan's gaze softened. He understood, of course he did. Everyone had seen the way the ceremony unfolded. Everyone had seen the way Kale looked at Ariana afterward. And everyone had seen her walk away. Rowan crossed his arms, leaning casually against a tree, though the tension in his posture betrayed him. That couldn't have been easy. Ariana let out a slow breath. No, she said honestly, but it was necessary. The forest fell quiet again. Rowan didn't speak immediately. He simply watched her, as if making sure she wasn't about to collapse. After a moment, he asked carefully, "Did he explain?" Ariana laughed softly, not amused, just done. "Kings don't explain," she said, "they decide." Rowan didn't argue because it was true. Political alliances had always shaped the royal bloodline. Seleni's pack controlled trade routes, wealth, and military reinforcements. The choice made sense, strategically, logically, coldly. But there was one problem. Kale had never warned Ariana, and that silence had said everything. Rowan pushed off the tree slowly. "Where are you going?" Ariana looked toward the darker path leading deeper into the forest. "Away from the palace, away from everything familiar. I don't know yet." The answer surprised even her. But it also felt freeing. For years, every decision she made had been tied to Kale's command, his wars, his strategies, his kingdom. Now, for the first time, she had no orders. Rowan studied her carefully, then asked the question she hadn't yet asked herself. "Are you staying?" The wind moved gently through the trees. Ariana closed her eyes for a moment, listening, feeling, searching inside herself. What was left for her at the palace? Memories, duty, silence, and watching another woman stand beside the man she once believed was hers. Her eyes opened. Clear, steady, resolved, no. Rowan's expression shifted slightly, not shock, recognition. He had expected this. "When?" he asked. Ariana's voice was calm. "Tonight." The word hung in the air, final, irreversible. Rowan exhaled slowly. "Then you shouldn't leave alone." Ariana raised an eyebrow. "I've survived worse." "I know," Rowan said. "That's not the point." For a brief moment, something unspoken passed between them. Respect, trust, and something deeper Rowan had never dared to voice. But before either of them could speak further, a powerful presence suddenly swept through the forest. Heavy, dominant, unmistakable, the air itself seemed to tighten. Ariana felt it instantly, so did Rowan. Both of them turned toward the palace road. Footsteps approached, slow, controlled, and filled with authority. Ariana didn't need to see him to know. Kale, he had come personally. Rowan muttered under his breath, "Well, that was fast." Ariana's heartbeat quickened. Not from hope, not from excitement, from clarity, because this conversation would change everything. Moments later, Alpha King Kale stepped into the moonlight, without ceremonial armor, without the royal court. Without the mask, he wore only a dark cloak, slightly open at the collar, as if he had left the celebration in a hurry. His amber eyes locked onto Ariana, and for the first time that night, the king didn't look composed. He looked unsettled. Rowan straightened respectfully. "My king." Kale didn't respond. His attention never left Ariana. "Leave us?" Kale said. Rowan hesitated, only for a second, then he looked at Ariana. She gave a small nod. It was fine. Rowan stepped back and disappeared into the trees. Silence fell between them, the kind of silence filled with everything left unsaid for far too long. Kale took a step forward. "Ariana." Her expression remained calm, respectful, distant. "Yes, your majesty." The title hit again. Harder this time. Kale's jaw tightened. "I didn't come here for titles." Ariana folded her arms lightly. "Then why did you come?" The question was simple, but it carried years of unspoken emotion. Kale stopped a few feet away, close enough to feel the pull that had always existed between them, close enough to realize it felt different now. Weaker, like something fragile had already begun to fade. His voice lowered. "You left?" Ariana blinked once, then gave a small nod. "Yes." Kale frowned slightly, as if the answer wasn't enough, as if he expected something more. Emotion, reaction, pain, but Ariana gave him none, because she had already made her choice. Kale took another step closer. "You should have stayed." And there it was, not an apology, not an explanation, a command. Ariana studied him for a long moment. Then she smiled. soft, polite, detached, and watch you crown someone else. The words were calm, but they struck like steel. Cale's expression hardened. It was necessary. Ariana nodded. I know. That response caught him off guard. He had expected anger, not understanding, but Ariana wasn't finished. It was political. Another nod. It was strategic. Cale said nothing, because both were true. Then Ariana delivered the final blow. But it wasn't honest silence. The forest seemed to hold its breath. For the first time, the Alpha King had no immediate answer. And that silence was the beginning of the crack in his pride. The forest air grew colder, or perhaps it only felt that way because the distance between them, once invisible, had finally taken form. Cale stood motionless after Ariana's words, but it wasn't honest. The sentence lingered like a blade pressed quietly against pride. For years, no one had ever spoken to him like that. Not advisors, not generals, not rival alphas, and certainly not someone he trusted. Yet Ariana had said it calmly, without accusation, without anger, which somehow made it worse. Cale exhaled slowly, his gaze sharpening. You think I lied to you? It wasn't a question. Ariana shook her head gently. No, that answer surprised him. Then she continued, I think you avoided the truth. Silence fell again. A distant owl called somewhere deep in the forest. Cale's eyes darkened slightly. He wasn't used to defending his decisions. He was the decision. I did what was necessary for the kingdom. Ariana nodded. I know. Again, no argument, no resistance, and yet, the calmness in her voice felt like rejection. Cale stepped closer, close enough now that he could see the faint shine of moonlight in her eyes, close enough to feel something shifting, slipping. You've always understood duty. I still do. Then why are you leaving? There it was, the real question. Not about politics, not about strategy, about her. Ariana held his gaze for a long moment. Neither of them spoke. Then she said quietly, because I finally understand something else. Cale frowned slightly. What? Ariana's voice remained steady. Self-respect. The word struck harder than any insult. Cale's expression changed, just slightly, but enough. Because that word carried meaning neither of them could ignore. For years, Ariana had stood beside him, without asking for anything. No title, no recognition, no promises, only loyalty. And now, that loyalty had boundaries, Cale's voice lowered. You think staying would cost you that? Ariana didn't hesitate. Yes. The answer was immediate, certain. Final. Cale felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. Not anger, not yet. Something closer to discomfort. Because deep down he knew she was right, but pride is a stubborn thing. You're overreacting. The moment the words left his mouth, the atmosphere changed. Ariana didn't look hurt, didn't look emotional. She simply looked finished, and that was far worse. Am I? Her tone was calm but distant now, like she was already somewhere else. Cale crossed his arms. You're walking away from everything you built. Ariana smiled softly. No. She reached slowly toward her shoulder, toward the silver crest pinned to her dress, the royal warrior emblem, the symbol he had personally given her 3 years ago after the Northern War. The symbol that marked her as his most trusted strategist. Her fingers unclasped it. The metal caught the moonlight as she held it in her palm. Cale's eyes narrowed. Ariana, but she didn't stop. She stepped forward, closed the distance between them, and gently placed the crest into his hand. The cold metal touched his skin, and in that single moment, something inside Cale shifted. This, Ariana said quietly, is what I built. Her gaze lifted to meet his, and it belongs to the king. The words were respectful, but the meaning was unmistakable. She wasn't leaving emotionally. She was leaving officially, completely. Cale's hand tightened around the crest. Ariana, don't do this. The sentence came out faster than he intended, and for the first time there was urgency in his voice. Ariana noticed, but she didn't step back. Instead, she did something no one had ever dared. She reached forward and removed the black thread bracelet tied around her wrist. Cale's breath stilled. He recognized it immediately. He had tied it there himself years ago before their most dangerous battle. A warrior's promise, *, a symbol that they would always watch each other's backs. *, Ariana placed it gently on top of the crest in his hand. The soft thread rested against the silver emblem. Duty, trust, history all returned. The gesture was quiet. Simple, but devastating, because this was the bold move. Not anger, not confrontation, not tears. Release. Cale stared at the items in his palm. For the first time in years, the Alpha King didn't know what to say. Ariana stepped back, and in doing so, she stepped out of his world. I wish you strength, your majesty. The title came again. Formal, distant, permanent. Cale looked up sharply, but Ariana was already turning away. The wind lifted her hair as she began walking deeper into the forest. Not toward the barracks, not toward the palace, toward the unknown, Ariana. He said her name again, but this time it didn't sound like a command. It sounded like something dangerously close to regret. She stopped just for a moment. The moonlight outlined her silhouette between the trees. Cale's voice softened. If things were different, Ariana didn't turn around, because she already knew how that sentence ended. If things were different, if politics didn't matter, if duty wasn't heavy, but reality didn't change for if. So she spoke without facing him. They aren't, and then she kept walking. The forest swallowed her silhouette, step by step, until she disappeared completely. Silence returned, heavy, unforgiving. Cale remained standing alone beneath the moon, the crest still in his hand, the bracelet still resting against his palm. For the first time since becoming Alpha King, he felt something crack. Not his power, not his authority, his pride, because Ariana hadn't begged, hadn't fought, hadn't stayed. She walked away, and in doing so, she took something with her he didn't realize he needed. Peace, trust. And the only person who had ever seen the man beneath the crown. A cold wind moved through the trees. Cale closed his hand slowly around the crest. Too late. Far above the forest, the moon glowed brighter. And miles away, Ariana Vale stepped onto a new path, unaware that destiny was already shifting. Unaware that another Alpha, far stronger, far more dangerous, and far more fated to her, had just caught her scent.